الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome everybody watching, local time, worldwide, west coast, down south, any other time zone or location. Welcome to every one of you. Inshallah ta'ala, before we get into today's discussion, or whatever fawaid we're going to share with you, don't forget about the 29th of July, which is the last Thursday of this month. We'll be discussing jinn possession in light of the Quran and Hadith, in light of Quran and Sunnah. What are we to believe about jinn possession? What do we know about jinn possession? What's correct or incorrect with regards to jinn possession? What is myth versus reality, fact versus fiction? And how do we help ourselves and others or any other Muslim who may have been afflicted or tested directly or indirectly from jinn possession. So that's the 29th of July in the night at 9:30 p.m. To find out how to sign up for this exclusive private lecture, you can visit HadithDiscipleshop.com and you'll get the information there. Also, our different services, we're starting some new services such as group Wiswas counseling therapy. Many brothers and sisters, they have single personal therapy. Now we're going to start up a group support system for the Muslims around the world who are many who suffer from waswas, OCD, and things like that. So if you've done counseling and therapy before with us, you're definitely going to check this out. And if you haven't, you're also definitely going to check this out. And that's on the website as well, along with the list of our other services that we provide. So inshallah, I'm going to share with you guys today a chapter from Sahih Bukhari or some commentary from Ibn Rajab's Fath al-Bari, not Ibn Hajar, Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali rahimahullah. Imam Bukhari rahimahullah in Kitab al-Iman chapter 36 says, Babu khawf al-mu'mini an yahbata amaluhu wa huwa la yash'ur. The chapter of the believer being scared, the believer being afraid of his or her deeds being rendered null and void, or being lost, being thrown down the drain, a person's deeds becoming invalid, and the believer doesn't even know. The believer doesn't have a clue or an idea that his or her deeds have been invalidated. So, it's a very serious chapter here, and a very serious book. The believer is to be afraid, should be afraid, must be afraid of losing his deeds, his good deeds. And even worse than that, is a person losing his good deeds and he doesn't have a clue, because you're in a state of delusion or self-drunkenness, and you don't even think that you're in a state of danger and peril. وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, وَقَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ التَّيْمِي مَا عَرَضْتُ قَوْلِي عَلَى عَمَلِي إِلَّا خَشِيتُ أَنْ أَكُونَ مُكَذِّبًا. وقال ابن أبي مليكة أدركت 30 من أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كلهم يخاف النفاق على نفسه ما منهم أحد يقول إنه على إيمان جبريل وميكائيل ويذكر عن الحسن ما خافه إلا مؤمن ولا آمنه إلا منافق وما يحذر من الإصرار على النفاق والعصيان من غير توبة من قول الله تعالى ولم يصروا على ما فعلوا وهم يعلمون. Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah, he starts off this discussion by saying, Ibrahim al-Taymi said, whenever I compare what I say to what I do, I'm afraid that I would be a denier or a belier. Whenever I weigh, I scale what I say versus what I do, I'm afraid that I'm a person of takdeeb. I'm a mukadhib. I'm one who denies and rejects, meaning I'm fake. I'm not real. I'm a munafiq. It can't be based off of the ratio of what I talk, how I talk, versus what I actually physically do. That was a statement of Ibrahim al-Taymi. Bukhari rahimahullah says, Ibn Abi Mulaika said, I have met over 30 of the Prophet's companions, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. each and every one of them were afraid of being a munafiq. None of them would say, my faith or my iman is like Jibreel and Mikael. I have perfect faith, perfect iman. My iman, it doesn't go down or up, it's not fluctuating, it's like Jibreel and Mikael. None of them would say that. 30 of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's blessed companions. Bukhari quotes the third athar by stating or saying, Hassan al-Basri is quoted to have said, nobody fears nifaq except that they're a believer. And no one feels safe from nifaq except that they are a munafiq. They are a disbeliever. Last but not least, he says, and also the chapter of being afraid of persisting upon nifaq and persisting upon disobedience without making tawbah. As Allah the Mighty and the Most High has stated, speaking about His believing slaves, وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً, and when they make a sin, when they fall into an error, when they do wrong, they mention Allah, they seek forgiveness for their sins, وَلَمْ يُسِرُّوا, and they are not persistent upon their disobedience, whilst they know, وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ, and they know. Ibn Rajab rahimahullah states, مراد البخاري بهذا الباب الرد على المرجئة القائلين بأن المؤمن يقطع لنفسه بكمال الإيمان وأن إيمانه كإيمان جبريل وميكائيل وأنه لا يخاف على نفسه النفاق العملي ما دام مؤمنا فذكر عن إبراهيم التيمي أنه قال ما عرضت إلى آخره. He says what Imam al-Bukhari means by this chapter, the explanation of the chapter heading, is to reject and to refute, to rebuke, to throw out and to discard the opinion and the view of some Muslims who say that Iman can't plummet, that Iman never suffers, and that a person's Iman is always perfect, it's always absolute, and there is no fluctuation in the Iman, and there are no levels in Iman. Those who hold this view and hold this opinion, an ancient group and the ancient sect, which of course its descendants are alive to this very day, very widespread in the Muslim world to this very day, let alone in other religions, they are known as Al-Murji'ah. Al-Murji'ah. And Al-Murji'ah were one of the earliest sects, schisms, and they were a group that appeared and they came and they said many things. They believed many things. And from that which they believed is that Iman does not fluctuate. It doesn't go up or down. And that sins and disobedience does not harm a person's Iman. As long as you have faith in your heart, you're a believer, you're a Muslim, khalas, that's it. If you do good deeds, that's good. Of course, they believe that. You should do good deeds. But you're not a deficient believer, you're not a lacking believer, your Iman isn't harmed at the least by doing acts of disobedience. And also a person will say that my Iman is like Jibreel's Iman. My Iman is like Mikael's Iman, like the Malaika's Iman. It's absolutely perfect, solid. This group, the Murji'ah, this is some of what they used to say. So Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah, he put Kitab al-Iman in his book as a whole to reject that sect and to prove that that belief is not the pure way of Islam, of Ahl Sunnah, Ahl Hadith, of Orthodox Islam. That is not the Aqidah of Islam. That is not the creed. That is not the theology. That is not the belief system of the book and the Sunnah for those who said that. And the companions and their followers and the imams after their followers, they all remain true and steadfast upon that original, organic, orthodox Aqidah. And from that is that Iman goes up and Iman goes down. Good deeds help a person's Iman, bad deeds hurt a person's Iman. And that there are levels to the believers, and they are unequal, they are not the same when it comes to Iman. So that is the purpose of Kitab al-Iman in general, and refuting other sects and groups as well. Alright? And of course, Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala wants to establish what is the correct way of Ahl Sunnah, of Ahl Hadith, with regards to Al-Iman in Kitab al-Iman, and specifically in this chapter. Clear. Point number 2 is that we benefit from this in 2021. even if you're, and inshallah, you're on the correct aqidah of Islam, the orthodox, organic way of Ahlul Sunnah, Ahlul Hadith. You have the correct belief system when it comes to Islam and when it comes to Iman. However, sins, disobedience, remaining steadfast, and being reminded. Next point are those brothers and sisters who suffer from al-waswas, وَمَا أَكْثَرَهُمْ, and how many of them are there. They suffer from waswas, and many of them, they say, I'm not a Muslim, I'm not a believer, I'm not a true believer, let me kill myself, let me slit my wrist, let me take some pills, let me jump off of a bridge, because I'm not a believer. I made sin. I drank alcohol last night. I smoked blunt. I was partying with some girls. Okay? I did this and I did that and I did that. So therefore, let me kill myself, because I'm not really a Muslim. I'm faking it. Allah knows that I'm really not a Muslim. The mentality of many brothers and sisters who have this waswas, and this is a problem. And if you have fear for nifaq, as Hassan al-Basri rahimahullah ta'ala said, then inshallah, that means you're a believer, the opposite. So we benefit from that, alright? Tayyib, khair inshallah. Alright, so Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, those are the athar that he mentioned, and the ayah from the Quran that he mentioned. Ibn Rajab, he says, he starts off with the statement of Ibrahim al-Taymi, who's from the early generations. He says, وَهَذَا مَعْرُوفٌ عَنْهُ وخرجه جعفر الفريابي بإسناد صحيح عنه ولفظه ما أردت خذ الأمر إلا خشيت أن أكون كذابا. He said it's well known that Ibrahim al-Taymi rahimahullah ta'ala used to say that. ومعناه أن المؤمن يصف الإيمان بقوله وعمله يقصر عن وصفه فيخشى على نفسه أن يكون عمله مكذبا لقوله كما روي عن حذيفة أنه قال المنافق الذي يصف الإسلام ولا يعمل به. وعن عمر قال إن أخوف ما أخاف عليكم المنافق العليم. قالوا وكيف يكون المنافق عليما؟ قال يتكلم بالحكمة ويعمل بالجور أو قال بالمنكر. وقال الجعد وأبو عثمان قلت لأبي رجاء العطاردي هل أدركت من أصحاب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يخشون النفاق؟ قال نعم إني أدركت بحمد الله منهم صبرا حسنا نعم شديدا وكان قد أدرك عمر. وممن يتعوذ من النفاق ويتخوف من الصحابة حذيفة وأبو الدرداء وأبو أيوب الأنصاري. وأما التابعون فكثير. قالوا ابن سيرين ما علي الشيء أخوف من هذه الآية ومن الناس من يقول آمنا بالله وباليوم الآخر وما هم بمؤمنين. وقال أيوب كل آية في القرآن فيها ذكر النفاق فإني أخاف على نفسي. وقال معاوية بن قرة كان عمر يخشاه وآمنه وأنا. وكلام الحسن في هذا المعنى كثير جدا وكذلك كلام أئمة الإسلام بعدهم. Ibn Rajab, he says, and this statement means is that a believer, he describes his iman with what? With his statement, with his tongue. He says, I am a believer, inshallah. I'm a Muslim, inshallah. I believe in Allah, etc. He talks, he says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. He speaks with his tongue. Yasifu imanahu. He explains and interprets and articulates his iman with his tongue. وَعَمَلُهُ يَقْصِرُ عَنْ وَصْفِهِ. And the mu'min's belief or his deeds, his actions, are always going to fall short from that which he says, his description and his articulation of his iman. That's what's meant by that. So Ibrahim Taymi said that whenever I look at what I say and what I profess, what I verbally acknowledge, versus what I physically do, what I actually physically, practically implement, I'm afraid of being a kadhab, a liar, or someone who is a belier. Meaning, there's takdeeb. My deeds don't add up to my tongue. Everybody understand what that effort means. He also says that Ibn Rajab, he also says Hudayfa radiallahu anhu said that the munafiq is the one who talks about Islam and doesn't act upon it. He describes Islam, he talks about it, but he doesn't act upon it. Umar radiallahu anhu said, the greatest fear that I have is a learned hypocrite, a munafiq who is alim. He's learned himself and he talks well. They said, and how can a munafiq even be alim? How is that even possible? They said he speaks hikmah. but he acts upon wickedness. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. Or he said he acts upon munkar. He acts upon munkar. Ja'ad Abu Uthman, he said, I asked Abu Raja al-Awtaridi, out of all of the companions of the Messenger of Allah that you met, did they fear hypocrisy upon themselves? Were they afraid? He said, Abu Raja al-Awtaridi, he said, Naam, they all did. He says, and alhamdulillah, I've met many of them. And from the people that Abu Raja al-Awtaridi met was Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And there are other companions who were afraid of nifaq and who used to seek Allah's refuge from nifaq. From them were Hudayfa, Abu Darda, and Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. As far as the tabi'un, there are many, abundant number of the Salaf Salih, the pious predecessors, who are afraid of that. Muhammad ibn Sirin, rahimahullah, he said, the most dangerous thing, the most scary thing, the scariest thing to me was the verse in Surah Al-Baqarah, in which Allah Azza wa mentioned, from men are those who say, we believe in Allah on the last day, and they are believers not. Ayyub al-Sikhtiyani, rahimahullah, he stated, every verse in the Quran that mentions nifaq, I'm afraid for my own self. Muawiyah ibn Qurra said, Umar was afraid of nifaq, how in the world can I be safe myself? Umar was afraid of it, amanahu ana? If Umar wasn't scared of it, then how about me? Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah, what he said regarding this is abundant, and there were many imams who came after these early tabi'een, and all of them said the same thing. وقال زيد ابن أبي الزرقاء عن سفيان الثوري خلاف ما بيننا وبين المرجئة ثلاث نقول الإيمان قول وعمل وهم يقولون الإيمان قول والعمل ونقول الإيمان يزيد وينقص وهم يقولون لا يزيد ولا ينقص ونحن نقول النفاق وهم يقولون لا نفاق. Zayd ibn Abi Zarqa, he said that Sufyan al-Thawri, rahimahullah, said the main differences between us and the Murji'ah, this sect, the fine line between us and them, 3 points. Point number 1, we say that Iman is a statement and an action, and they say that Iman is only a statement and not an action. Number 2, we say Iman increases and decreases, they don't say that. Number 3, we say there is a thing called nifaq. It's possible, it can happen, and they say la nifaq. There's no such thing, a Muslim can't fall into it, he'll never fall into it, etc. وقال أبو إسحاق الفزاري الأوزاعي قد خاف عمر على نفسه النفاق قال فقلت للأوزاعي إنهم يقولون أن عمر لم يخاف أن يكون يومئذ منافقا حين سأله حذيفة لكن خاف أن يبتلى بذلك قبل أن يموت قال هذا قول أهل البدع. Then he quotes Ibn Rajab rahimahullah ta'ala, he then quotes Abu Ishaq al-Fazari, who quotes al-Awza'i rahimahullah ta'ala, who said that indeed Umar ibn al-Khattab was afraid for hypocrisy. He was scared of it. He was afraid of it, afraid of it falling upon him. So I asked Awza'i, Abu Ishaq al-Fazari, he says, I asked him, they say, إِنَّهُمْ يَقُولُونَ, that when Umar asked Hudayfa, who did the Prophet say from the Munafiqun? Did he mention my name? Did he mention my name? Did he mention my name? Is that Umar wasn't actually afraid for himself, but he was scared to be upon that and to be tested with that before death. Awza'i heard this explanation, he heard this interpretation, and he said, this is not the statement of Ahlul Sunnah, this is the statement of the people of innovations. That's their twisting and warping of that statement. The people of bid'ah, of innovations, they made that up. And Umar radiallahu anhu was afraid and scared for nifaq at that time. Moving forward. وقال الإمام أحمد في رواية ابن هانئ وسئل ما نقول في من لا يخاف النفاق على نفسه فقال ومن يأمن على نفسه النفاق. Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala was asked, what do we say regarding those who aren't afraid of hypocrisy? They say it's no big deal, it's no big thing. What do we say about them? Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala says, and who can be safe? Who can be safe from nifaq? Who can be safe from nifaq? So we'll stop here b'idhnillahi ta'ala today. Hopefully next week or another day we'll have the ability to finish reading from that chapter. And the main point or the main points are clear, they're plain, and they're lucid. And that is for us to understand what's correct and what's incorrect, what's orthodox, what's unorthodox, what's pure, what is impure, what is organic, what is GMO, with regards to the Aqidah of Al-Islam. okay? And for us to be humble and never ever to think that we're doing Allah a favor, and never to think that Allah owes us something, and never to look down upon people and to think that we're better than people, and to turn up our noses at people. All right, and this is extremely common on the train, in the airport, in college, at the masjid, at the supermarket. Don't look down upon Muslims. A sister, her hair is out, her kimar is turned back, her ears are out. Don't look down upon her. Make dua for her. Guide her. Give her advice. Be kind to her. Don't look down upon her. You see a brother and he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's not practicing what he's supposed to be practicing. Don't look down on him. Don't make fun of him. Don't shun him. Don't talk ill of him. Call him to the truth. Try to be kind. Try to be nice. Make dua for them and feel sorry for that person. Okay? And don't feel and think that it's guaranteed for you to die upon that which you've learned about. Don't think that. Alright? Always keep an empty cup. Always keep a hungry spirit. Always criticize yourself, look down upon yourself, and always look forward to achieving more, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, but remain balanced. Remain balanced, okay? If you're asking and if you're scared and if you're afraid, that's a good sign, alright? If you have suicidal thoughts or you want to leave Islam, know that that's all from shaitan. It's all from your nafs. None of that is true. That's the false mind trying to confuse and trick the true mind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. We'll try our best, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, now to answer some questions, if we have the answers to the questions. And Allah knows best. Jazakumullah khairan for everybody on Instagram. Thanks for everyone who bought a badge. Don't forget, brothers and sisters, to buy a badge. And there are other ways that you can support and help the channels to be maintained, and to help and to support the websites to be maintained, and to help and to support the channels and websites to grow. Have more time, better technology, inshallah ta'ala, employ people instead of actual volunteers. The way we can offer better quality videos, better quality audio, more consistent. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Thank you very much for your support. And of course, the Patreon, GoFundMe, Cash App, PayPal, and any other way anyone else wishes to contribute to the movement and the movements. Jazakumullah khairan. All right. So the first question, let me say wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah to everybody. MHG from Queens, New York. Salam alaikum, Sheikh. In our city culture, men don't marry their friend's ex-wife. When it does happen, it causes a lot of resentment between brothers. What's the solution? There is no solution. Khalas. If they don't do that, then they don't do that. Period. It's that simple. As far as the solution, then once a woman is divorced, she's lawful to marry who she wants to marry. Period. If you don't want your friend or brother or whatever the case may be to marry your wife, you're jealous or you feel some type of way, that's fine. Don't divorce her. Keep her as your wife. If you're scared of her marrying someone else, then why let her go? Hold on, inshallah ta'ala. The moment you divorce her, she's no longer your wife. Khalas. She can marry who she wants to. She can marry Bakr, Zayd, Amr, Abdullah, Abdurrahman, Tom, Dick, Harry, John, Jim, Frank, Khalas. She's open to marry who she wants to. So there's no solution except for Islam. And that is, once a woman is divorced, she's allowed to marry who she wants to marry. And once the woman is allowed to marry who she wants to marry, any brother can marry her if he chooses so. And there are many examples of women marrying different people who knew each other in the time of the Sahaba. Alright? So there's a big problem with this. Some brothers, they think and they feel that they own a woman for the rest of their lives. That's a fact. That's a fact. Many brothers, they think this. She's my ex-wife and that's it. I've heard brothers make death threats to brothers for marrying their ex-wives. Wallahi, death threats. I'm going to shoot you if I find you with my ex-wife. And look how stupid that statement is. I'm going to shoot you if I find you with my wife. No, my ex-wife. It's idiotic. She's not your wife anymore. Why are you even mad and upset? If you loved her that much, you had that much jealousy for her, if you have that much attachment to her, keep her as your wife. So that's stupidity. That's not Islam. That's not the Sunnah. Different resentment, so on and so forth. The bottom line is, it's lawful. Of course, if you have a close friend, you're going to feel some type of way. It's going to be an awkward feeling, of course. That's human nature. But just because you feel awkward or it looks awkward, it doesn't mean that it's haram or disliked. Alright? And Allah surely knows best. Next question says, وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. السامع مسلم مولانا شاب الكلام يا أخي الله يستر عليك مولانا. طيب أيكم للطالب المبتدئ AK لندن أن يدرس التفسير من قراءة تفسير سعدي أو لا بد من الشيخ. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. يفعل الأمرين، يقرأ على شيخ، يقرأ على أستاذ، يجلس في حلقة من حلقات التفسير، وكذلك الطالب يطالع بنفسه ويقرأ بنفسه. إن أحب أن يقرأ وأن يطالع systematically فذلك يعني فذاك. يأخذ بالأيسر فالأيسر، بالأقصر فالأقصر، بالأسهل فالأسهل ماشي، بالأخصر فالأخصر ماشي. وكذلك يجلس مع شيخ وأستاذ ويقرأ ولا يفعل الأمرين مع بعض. القراءة من الكتب يساعد على الاستفادة من المشايخ، ومجالسة المشايخ والاستفادة من علمهم يساعد على الاستفادة من الكتب. إياك وقول من يقول لا تقرأ الكتب، لا تطالع الكتب، لا تنظر في الكتب على العلماء، هذا كلام فاضي فارغ لا معنى له، لا وزن له، زبالة. وإياك وقول من يقول أو قول من قال عليك بالكتب، لا تجلس مع هذا، لا تضيع وقتك مع هذا، لا تحتاج العلماء، لا كلام فارغ. الاثنين الأمرين مع بعض والله الموفق. Muhammad Salah, Farwani, Kuwait, how to deal with people with negative assumptions from people. Don't deal with them. Once you've given them advice, you move forward. You keep it moving, you keep it rolling. Keep positive energy in your circle, inshallah ta'ala. Joshua Thomas from Baltimore, Maryland. Should we say prescribe that call for normal sajda during sujood for forgiveness? Yes, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Yes. R.N. L.N. Langham, I guess Langham, Maryland. Assalamu alaikum. Is it okay to work babysitting jobs in non-Muslim weddings? Or would that be supporting their acts, Christian traditions of the weddings? No, not necessarily. You're babysitting children. You're doing a permissible service. It has nothing to do with what they do. You're not responsible for the deeds. You're babysitting children. It's just fine. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Wallahu alam. See if we have anything on Instagram. طيب. حياك الله أخي عمار. Barakallahu feek. Assalamu alaikum. How do we respond to those who claim that istighatha is not shirk? Don't respond to them. Leave them be. Khalas. You're absolutely right. Nothing is shirk. Call upon other than Allah, no problem. Go to the graves, make tawaf, slaughter, call upon them, make vows to them, swear by them. Of course that's not shirk. To invoke other than Allah to help you, of course that's not shirk. And of course Ibn Abdul Wahab made it all up. He brought it, he invented it, it came out of thin air, it's from Saudi Arabia. You're absolutely right. Nothing is shirk. The only shirk in the world is to believe is that there is another creator besides Allah. The only shirk in the world is to believe is that there is someone who gives life and death besides Allah. That's it. Or someone who worships an idol. That's it. The awliya, the jinn, the malaika, the spirits, none of that is shirk. Rather, if you see somebody prostrating to an idol, walking around the idol, slaughtering an animal for idol, that may not be shirk too. We don't know what intention he has in his heart. Questions ID from New Jersey. Sheikh, what is the rule on saying the N-word if a person says in a non-negative context? We've answered that question many times before. Please go back to the full detailed video on Mufti Q&A. In brief, of course, it's not the best word to use or to say in general. However, We do not remove text from context. All right? There's a huge difference between a white person calling a black person the N-word versus a black person calling a black person the N-word versus a friend who's white calling his black person the N-word versus a black person who's calling his white friend the N-word. Someone who's from the hood, the ghetto, someone who's not from the hood, someone who's from the streets. It's different variations. And it's very important to understand that language evolves. That's a fact. Language evolves. It has evolved. It is evolving and will continue to evolve. And there are many words and terms that were used in the 50s, the 30s that aren't used anymore. There are different words in the UK that aren't the same meaning in America. When I heard a brother explain to me what a fag was, that it's a cigarette. In America, we say a fag meaning a homosexual man. It's a difference. Do you understand? All right, and there are other terms and words as well which are different and evolve. So the N-word today is not like the N-word back then. The N-word being used in a derogatory manner is not like the N-word being used in an affectionate manner. So on and so on and so forth. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. طيب. This is the last question we'll take today. H.A. from Hamilton, Canada. How can niqab be wajib if there's hadith for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told Asma bint Abi Bakr to cover everything except her hands and her face? The question sounds like the answer. The cup is definitely full. And it's not the same as asking what's the explanation of the hadith of Asma bint Abi Bakr, etc., etc., etc. But in brief, that hadith is one of the main proofs used by those scholars who say that covering the hands and the face is not obligatory. Common sense. Secondly, the scholars who say that it is obligatory, or they may not say that it's obligatory, but many scholars hold the view, which is the correct view, is that that hadith is not authentic. The hadith is extremely weak. Hadithun munkar, sanadan wa matnan. Period. Okay? So the scholars, they differ on that issue. They differ on that hadith. Is that hadith sound or not? What does that hadith mean? So on and so forth. And of course, with regards to covering the hands and the face, wearing the niqab, it's a very long discussion. And there are proofs and there are evidences on both sides. Do what you feel is closest to piety. It's a very long discussion, a technical discussion in hadith science, in fiqh. It's a very long discussion with regards to what is the right view. Does a woman have to cover her hands and the face in front of non-mahram men or not? Wallahu ta'ala alam. We'll stop here. Jazakumullah khairan. هذا صلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا وإمامنا محمد.